Eleanor West pushed open the glass door of the hospital pharmacy and stepped outside. The chilly October wind caressed her cheeks. She felt a mixture of relief from finishing work and anticipation of spending time with her family. But deep inside, a small worry lurked. Tonight, Greg would leave for a 2-week business trip. Once in her car, Eleanor took a deep breath. After 10 years as a hospital pharmacist, she had learned to maintain her composure at all times. A mistake in prescriptions could sometimes be fatal. That sense of responsibility and accuracy was her pride. Now, as the leader of the pharmacy team, she was highly trusted by her colleagues. She could see her 2-story house in a quiet residential area in the suburbs of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Eleanor parked her car and checked her face in the rearview mirror. Her skin had hardly any wrinkles, and her hair shone with a light chestnut color. However, there were traces of fatigue under her eyes. "Mom." As the front door opened, a small figure darted out. Lily's thin arms wrapped around Eleanor's waist. "Lily, be careful. How many times have I told you not to run out into the street?" Eleanor gently admonished her daughter as she picked her up. Lily's big blue eyes held their usual curiosity and intelligence. Her 6-year-old daughter was always sensitive to changes around her. Sometimes, she could even sense Eleanor's mood before she put it into words. "Dad's got his suitcase out. Is he leaving again?" Disappointment seeped into Lily's voice. Eleanor stroked her daughter's soft hair as she answered. "Yes. Dad has important work to do. But when he comes back, he'll make plenty of time for us." Eleanor herself wasn't sure if those words were true. Greg West, as a sales manager for a major pharmaceutical company, frequently went on business trips. Greg was passionate about his work, and that enthusiasm had led to his promotions. Lately, however, he had been spending less time at home, and even when he was there, he seemed somewhat distant. When they entered the house, Greg was packing the last of his belongings into his suitcase in the living room. His face showed fatigue and impatience. "Hey, welcome back. I'm almost ready," he said, glancing at his watch. "I need to make that 7 o'clock flight." Eleanor tried to smile, but it came across as a bit forced. "What about dinner? Would you like something before you go?" "No time. I'll grab something at the airport," Greg replied as he closed his suitcase. Lily scurried to her father's feet. "Dad, take this with you. It's a lucky charm." She held out a small stone. The surface had "Love you, Dad" written on it in childish handwriting. Greg's expression softened. He knelt down to Lily's eye level and hugged her. "Thank you, Princess. I'll treasure it." Eleanor felt a tightness in her chest as she watched the scene. Greg was a loving father to Lily. But lately, she felt their own relationship had grown cold. "Greg, about your return flight." Eleanor began, but Greg's smartphone rang. He changed his expression after looking at the screen. "I need to take this. It's from the company." Greg hurriedly moved to another room and began speaking in a hushed voice. Eleanor tilted her head questioningly but took Lily's hand and headed for the kitchen. "Come on, Lily. Let's prepare dinner. I'll make lasagna, Dad's favorite." "But Dad said he won't eat it," Lily tilted her head. "Yes, that's true. But we'll eat it. And we can freeze some for when Dad comes back." While Eleanor was taking out ingredients for lasagna in the kitchen, Lily began drawing with crayons. As Eleanor chopped the cheese, she wondered about Greg. Recently, he had started leaving the room frequently to take phone calls. At first, she thought it was about confidential company matters, but now she couldn't help considering other possibilities. When Greg returned, his expression was bright. "It wasn't bad news, was it?" Eleanor said. "Oh, well." Greg stumbled over his words a bit. "Just routine confirmation. Anyway, I need to get going. I see, Eleanor answered quietly. Take care. Let me know if anything happens. Greg nodded, gave Lily another kiss, and hurried out. As the door closed, a moment of silence fell over the house. Mom, what's wrong with Dad? Lily's clear eyes looked up at Eleanor. Lately, he seems to be somewhere else. Eleanor was surprised. Lily's powers of observation always amazed her. Maybe you're right. Dad is busy. He has lots of important work. Does Dad love you too? That simple question left Eleanor at a loss for words. Of course he does. Dad loves our family. Lily remained silent for a while, as if thinking, but eventually nodded. I guess so. That night, after putting Lily to bed, Eleanor unplugged Greg's smartphone from the charger in the bedroom. He had left it behind in his hurry. The screen showed a notification of a new message. It was from an unknown number. Eleanor held the phone in her hand without moving for a while. She knew the password. As a sign of trust, they had shared their passwords with each other. But she locked the screen and put it back. In her heart, she told herself it was just a work-related message. Looking out the window, she could see stars shining in the autumn night sky. Eleanor took a deep breath and lay down on the bed. On the morning of Greg's third day away, Eleanor was checking prescriptions at the hospital pharmacy. October rain beat against the windows, and the gray sky made the lighting inside the pharmacy seem even brighter. The phone rang, and she picked up the receiver. Pharmacy, Eleanor West speaking. There was silence on the other end. Hello? Eleanor said in a slightly louder voice. Can I help you? Silence again. Only faint breathing could be heard. Eventually, the call ended. Eleanor put down the receiver with a puzzled expression. She thought it must have been a wrong number. However, the same thing happened again that afternoon. After the third call, her colleague Jeanette asked with concern, Eleanor, are you all right? You look pale. It's just a bit creepy. I keep getting calls where no one speaks. Jeanette laughed. Well, it could be telemarketers, couldn't it? I hear they sometimes use a technique where they just wait for a response. Eleanor forced a smile. Yes, maybe I'm overthinking it. After work, Eleanor went to pick up Lily from after-school care. Once in the car, Lily excitedly began talking about what had happened at school. Eleanor smiled and listened to her daughter's stories. As they approached their house, she suddenly slowed down. An unfamiliar black sedan was slowly passing by her house. She couldn't see the driver, but a female silhouette was briefly visible through the window. Eleanor instinctively hit the brakes. The sedan turned the corner and disappeared from view. Mom, what's wrong? Lily's voice brought her back to reality. Nothing, just a little. She tried to hide her confused state. What would you like to eat today? That night, after putting Lily to bed, Eleanor made a video call to Greg. He answered from a luxury hotel room. In the background, a cityscape at night spread out through large windows. How was your day? Greg asked in a somewhat tired voice. Normal. But I did get some strange calls. Eleanor told him about the suspicious phone calls. Wrong numbers, perhaps. Greg said lightly. Anyway, I need to focus on the big presentation tomorrow. How's Lily? Eleanor swallowed the anxiety in her chest. She's fine. Missing you, though. The call ended shortly. Greg seemed to be in a hurry. After hanging up, Eleanor sat on the living room sofa for a while. Staring at the darkness outside the window, she was struck by an odd sensation of being watched. She closed the curtains and double-checked all the locks in the house. The next morning, Eleanor felt something was off as she washed her face in the bathroom. Her cosmetics had slightly changed position. The perfume bottle was a few centimeters away from where she had placed it. A cold fear ran down her spine. It's just my imagination, she told herself. I was in a hurry yesterday. But when she returned to the bedroom, she noticed the closet door was slightly open. She tensely opened the door and checked inside. The clothes seemed to be in their original positions, but something felt different. Her favorite dress was hanging in a different direction than usual. Mom! Lily's voice made her jump. I want breakfast. I'll be right there, Lily. Eleanor took a deep breath, trying to calm herself. She was probably just tired. The stress of Greg being away might be making her paranoid. In the afternoon, Eleanor invited her neighbor Betty Johnson over for coffee. Betty was a former teacher with a gentle personality and keen observation skills. Eleanor, do you have something on your mind? Betty asked, cradling her coffee cup in both hands. Betty, do you think I'm going crazy? Eleanor asked anxiously. Since yesterday, I've had this feeling that someone's been in our house. Betty looked at her with concern. Was anything stolen? No, not that. It's more like my things have been moved slightly. Cosmetics, clothes. Oh my, Betty said after thinking for a moment. Maybe you're just on edge because Greg's away. When my husband used to go on business trips, I'd get so sensitive to every sound in the house. Eleanor laughed forcefully. Maybe you're right. It could just be my imagination. That evening, Eleanor was playing with Lily in the garden. The cold October air had turned both their cheeks red. Suddenly, Lily stopped running and pointed at the fence. Mom, there's a lady over there. Eleanor turned quickly. Where? There, behind the tree, Lily said with a serious face. The lady with golden hair. She's watching us. Eleanor hurried toward the fence. Lily, stay here. But when she reached the spot, there was no one there. There was no one on the street either, just leaves dancing in the wind. Lily, was there really someone? Lily nodded. Yes, a lady with long hair. She was smiling. Eleanor grasped Lily's shoulders and asked seriously, have you seen this person before? Lily shook her head. No, never. That night, Eleanor couldn't sleep from anxiety. She lay in bed, listening to the sounds of the house. She could hear the typical creaking of an old house and the slight hum of the heating system. Outside, rain had started to fall again. Around 2 in the morning, she finally fell asleep from exhaustion. However, just a few hours later, she was awakened by Lily's voice. Mom, that person came back. Eleanor sat up with a start. What? Where? Standing in the garden, Lily pointed to the window. Standing in the rain. Eleanor turned on the bedside lamp with trembling hands and cautiously approached the window. She opened the curtain slightly and peered out. The rain was falling heavily, and the streetlights reflected in puddles. But there was no human figure in the garden. Lily, there's no one out there. But she was just there. Lily's voice was filled with conviction. The woman with yellow hair. She was looking up. Eleanor couldn't suppress her trembling. She embraced Lily and said, You had a scary dream, but Lily kept shaking her head. After breakfast, Eleanor called the police. However, the female officer, while sympathetic, said, without concrete evidence. Were the doors locked? The windows? Has anything been stolen? The answer to all questions was no. Do you have any reason to suspect stalking? An ex-boyfriend or someone you've had trouble with? No, Eleanor answered. But my daughter says she saw an unknown woman. You have a child. The officer's voice softened. Children can have vivid imaginations. But if you're worried, we'll increase patrols. Contact us immediately if anything concrete happens." That afternoon, Eleanor accidentally opened Greg's emails when she tried to watch a movie on his laptop. There were dozens of emails from an unknown address. For a moment, she was tempted to open them, but she stopped herself. She should respect his privacy. Still, her anxiety only grew. On Friday night, a week after Greg left on his business trip, Eleanor decided to let Lily sleep in her bed. Her daughter was delighted. "Mom, I'm not scared," Lily said. "I'll protect you." Eleanor laughed and stroked Lily's hair. "Thank you, my brave girl." She double-checked all the windows and doors in the house, turned on the front porch light and the backyard lights, then lay down next to Lily. Exhausted, Eleanor fell asleep quickly. In her deep sleep, Eleanor felt small hands patting her cheeks. At first, she thought it was part of a dream. But the touch of those hands was too real. She slowly regained consciousness and opened her eyes. The room was wrapped in darkness, with moonlight filtering through the window as the only source of light. "Mom!" She heard Lily's small voice. The child was leaning over her mother, with an eerily calm expression. However, fear dwelled in those big blue eyes. "Lily. What's wrong?" Eleanor tried to shake off her drowsiness and started to sit up. "Mom, don't go back to sleep. Someone's here." At Lily's words, Eleanor's drowsiness vanished instantly. But her brain still couldn't fully comprehend the meaning. "What do you mean?" she asked in confusion. Lily quickly put her index finger to her lips and said softly, "Sure." Her expression held an urgency that seemed beyond her 6 years. At that moment, Eleanor heard it. From the hallway, slow, rhythmic footsteps were approaching. Looking at the clock, she saw it was 3:15 a.m. Greg wasn't supposed to return until tomorrow night. Eleanor's body froze, unable to move. Her heart pounded so violently in her chest that she felt the sound echoing in her ears. "Lily," she said in a barely audible voice. "Hide under the bed. Now." Lily shook her head. "No. I'll stay with you." The footsteps drew nearer. They were cautious yet confident steps. The intruder seemed to know the layout of the house. Eleanor instinctively reached for her bedside table and grabbed her cell phone. As she tried to dial 911, she saw the "no service" indicator at the top of the screen. "No way!" she gasped. The intruder seemed to have reached the top of the stairs. The footsteps paused for a moment, then slowly began heading toward the bedroom where Eleanor and Lily were. The sound of footsteps on the carpet was faint, but in the silence of the night, they sounded like thunder. Eleanor desperately tried to regain her composure. She took a deep breath and gripped Lily's hand tightly. "Stay quiet," she mouthed without sound. The two slipped off the bed, and Eleanor picked Lily up. Just as she was about to head for the closet in the corner of the room, the footsteps stopped in front of the bedroom door. Eleanor held her breath. The sound of the doorknob slowly turning could be heard. Time seemed to stand still. 1,000 thoughts raced through Eleanor's mind. Escape through the back door. Exit through the window. Defend herself with something. But her biggest concern was Lily's safety. The moment the doorknob completed its turn and the door began to open slightly, Eleanor made her decision. She quickly picked up Lily and headed for a small door on the opposite side of the room. It was the entrance to the attic, normally used for storage, accessible by a ladder. Eleanor lifted Lily above her head and whispered, "Climb up." The little girl moved with incredible agility and began climbing the ladder. Eleanor looked back and saw the bedroom door about to open completely. "Hurry, Lily," she urged in a low voice. When Lily had fully climbed into the attic, Eleanor followed. Just then, the bedroom door opened completely, and someone entered the room. Eleanor climbed the last rung and quietly closed the attic hatch. In the darkness, the two lay still, holding their breath. The attic was dusty, and the air was stagnant. From below, they could hear objects being thrown and drawers being opened. "Where is that woman?" a low female voice could be heard. It was filled with anger and madness. "Come out, Eleanor. We need to talk." Eleanor hugged Lily, covering her with her own body. She could feel her daughter's small body trembling. Eleanor brought her lips close to Lily's ear and whispered in an almost inaudible voice, "It's okay. Mom's here with you." Below, the intruder seemed to be ransacking the room. The closet door was opened, and the area under the bed was checked. Angry cries could be heard. "Where are you? I'll find you." One question floated in Eleanor's mind: who was this woman? Why was she looking for her? She didn't recognize the voice. The intruder seemed to have found something. "What's this?" The sound of paper being flipped was heard. "Ah, a photo of Greg. Your husband. Soon he'll be mine." Eleanor was shocked. Was this a woman involved with Greg? She hugged Lily tighter. Her daughter's face was buried in her chest. "Oh, this is a picture of your daughter. Cute child. But the child I'll have with Greg will be even more beautiful." Maniacal laughter echoed through the room. Eleanor could hardly suppress the mixed emotions of anger and fear. Lily's safety was her top priority. She continued to wait silently. After ransacking the bedroom for several more minutes, the intruder went out into the hallway. The footsteps moved to other rooms. Eleanor remained motionless, waiting. She could hear sounds of searching throughout the house. "Where are you?" The intruder's voice could be heard from a distance. "I'll find you. If not today, I'll come back." Time passed slowly. Eleanor couldn't see the clock, but it felt like they had been lying in the attic for at least an hour. Finally, they heard the front door open from downstairs. Then, the door closing. Then, silence. Still, Eleanor didn't move immediately. This could be a trap. She waited quietly with Lily for about 15 more minutes. Lily was tired and starting to fall asleep on Eleanor's chest. "Lily," Eleanor gently shook her daughter. "Wait here a bit. Mom will go down and check." "No, Mom," Lily looked up at her mother with sleepy eyes. "I'll stay with you. It might be dangerous. You'll be safe if you wait here." Lily shook her head stubbornly. "I'll go with you. I'll protect Mom." Eleanor gave up and exhaled deeply. "All right. But if anything happens, hide behind me immediately." Quietly opening the attic hatch, Eleanor carefully peered down. The bedroom was in disarray. All the dresser drawers were open, their contents scattered on the floor. The bed sheets had been pulled off, and clothes from the closet were thrown onto the floor. Eleanor cautiously descended the ladder and helped Lily down. They quietly crossed the room and stopped at the door. Eleanor listened intently. The house was completely silent. "Wait here," she told Lily and stepped into the hallway. After enough time had passed to check the entire house, Eleanor called for Lily. "It seems clear. But I'll call the police just to be safe." She picked up her cell phone. It still showed no service. When she went to the landline, she discovered the phone line had been ripped from the wall. The intruder had planned this. Eleanor looked out the window. There was no sign of a black sedan. She decided to run to a neighbor's house for help. "Lily, put on your coat," she said. "We're going to Betty's house." Lily nodded silently. Her blue eyes remained wide open. Eleanor hugged her daughter. "You were so brave, Lily. If you hadn't woken me up." Lily answered with a serious face. "I knew that person was coming. I saw it in a dream." Eleanor felt a chill down her spine at her daughter's words. Lily's intuition had always been sharp, but this went beyond mere intuition. However, now was not the time to think about that. They needed to move to a safe place. Betty Johnson's living room was warm and filled with a sense of security. Eleanor and Lily sat on their neighbor's sofa, answering a police officer's questions. Betty brought hot chocolate from the kitchen and offered it to the shivering Lily. "Could you clearly see the intruder's face?" asked a young male officer. His name tag read, Officer Martin. Eleanor shook her head. "No. It was dark, we were hiding in the attic." "But the voice was female, correct?" "Yes. I think it was a woman with long blonde hair. My daughter had seen her in the garden before." Officer Martin smiled kindly at Lily. "Lily, can you tell me about this woman? What did she look like?" Lily wrapped both hands around her cup and carefully chose her words. "Yellow long hair. She was pretty, but she had a scary smile. She had Dad's picture." The officer nodded as he took notes. "I see. You remember well." Another officer entered from the entrance. She was a woman in her 40s with a grave expression. "We've completed the investigation of the house," she said, addressing Eleanor. "The intruder seems to have opened the back door lock with some kind of tool. There were traces of professional equipment being used." The color drained from Eleanor's face. "So it was planned." "Yes. And we found this." The female officer produced an evidence bag. Inside was a strand of long blonde hair. It was also captured on security cameras. "The face isn't clear, but it's definitely a woman with long blonde hair. Does anyone come to mind?" Officer Martin asked. "Do you know anyone matching this description?" Eleanor shook her head. "No." But doubt was rising in her heart. The intruder knew Greg's name. She had suggested a relationship with him. "Have you contacted your husband?" "Not yet. He's on a business trip." "Contact him immediately. Your family could be in danger." Eleanor nodded and took out her cell phone. The signal was working at Betty's house. She dialed Greg's number. It rang several times, but there was no answer. Eventually, it went to voicemail. "Greg, it's me. There's an emergency. Someone broke into the house. Lily and I are safe, but please call me back right away," she said in a trembling voice. The police suggested moving Eleanor and Lily to a hotel, but Betty offered to let them stay at her home. "My house is safe. My husband has a shotgun too," Betty said, holding Eleanor's hand. That afternoon, Eleanor returned to her home, accompanied by police, to get necessary clothes and documents. The entire house had been ransacked. On the living room table, broken picture frames were scattered, and her wedding photo with Greg had been torn. Eleanor stood dumbfounded. "Has anything been stolen?" the officer asked. Eleanor checked around the house. "Nothing of particular value." She started to say but stopped. Greg's study had been ransacked. His laptop was on the floor but seemed intact. "I'll take this," she pointed to the laptop. "It has my husband's important work data." When they returned to Betty's house, Lily was exhausted and taking an afternoon nap. Eleanor opened Greg's laptop in the living room. She knew the password. They had shared passwords for 10 years of marriage. When the laptop started up, several email notifications appeared on the screen. Eleanor clicked on them casually. And her world completely fell apart. The screen displayed a series of messages with a woman named Carol. Words of love, secret meetings, plans for the future. Greg appeared to have been having an affair with this woman for at least 6 months. With trembling hands, Eleanor scrolled through the messages. And seeing the latest one, she gasped. Once your wife is gone, we can be together. I can't wait. Let's meet at the hotel next week. Same as always. The date of the message was 2 days before Greg departed on his business trip. Eleanor closed the screen and covered her face with both hands. Everything connected. Greg's recent avoidance of her, the secret phone calls, and his indifference. And perhaps last night's intruder was Mom. Lily's voice could be heard. She was standing in the living room with sleepy eyes. Oh, Lily, Eleanor tried to wipe away her tears, but they wouldn't stop. Lily silently approached her mother and hugged her with small arms. Did Dad do something bad? Eleanor was again amazed by the child's incredible intuition. Dad made a mistake. But we need to think about what to do now. That evening, Greg finally called. He said he would return home immediately. Eleanor calmly explained the situation but didn't mention Carol. I'll be on the first flight tonight, Greg said. I'm so relieved you're both safe. His voice contained genuine concern. Eleanor was confused. Was he really worried about them, or was he just afraid his secret would be exposed? Before presenting new evidence to the police, Eleanor took out an old pistol she had inherited from her father. She hadn't used it in over 10 years, but she remembered the basics of shooting. In her youth, she had practiced at a shooting range with her father. She checked the bullets and made sure the safety was on. This was for self-defense. Carol might come back. The next morning, Greg arrived with an exhausted expression. He hugged Eleanor and Lily tightly. What happened? The police. Sit down, Eleanor said calmly. We need to talk. She opened the laptop and displayed the emails with Carol. The color drained from Greg's face. This is. No need to explain, Eleanor said. I think I should show this to the police. The intruder last night might have been Carol, don't you think? She knew about you, about our house. Greg held his head in his hands. That's impossible. She was, yes, we had a relationship, but not like. Does she have long blonde hair? Greg's silence was the answer. 2 hours later, the police had identified Carol's full name and address. Carol Daniels, 34, an employee at a company affiliated with Greg's. And it was discovered that she had a previous arrest record for stalking behavior. We'll find her, Officer Martin assured. Until then, officers will be on guard. Greg had to admit everything. The affair that began 6 months ago. However, he adamantly maintained that he knew nothing about Carol's intrusion plan. She was a bit obsessive. But I never thought she would do something like this. Eleanor stared at him. The man she once loved. Her life partner. Lily's father. Now he seemed like a stranger. Greg, Lily and I are going back to Betty's house. We'll be talking through lawyers from now on. Her voice didn't tremble. After a night of terror, Eleanor had discovered her inner strength. She took Lily's hand and headed for the door. Lily, the bus is coming. Eleanor Harris called from the kitchen. She hadn't remarried but had returned to her maiden name after the divorce. Small footsteps approached from the living room. Lily had grown taller and had a more confident expression. Mom, can I go to Sarah's house after school today? Lily asked while receiving her lunchbox. Of course. I'll pick you up at 5, Eleanor kissed her daughter's forehead. A year had passed since that terrible night. Eleanor and Lily had left Pennsylvania and moved to a small town in New Hampshire. Eleanor had secured a new position as head of pharmacy at a local hospital. The salary was better than before, and the work environment was wonderful. Above all, it was a new beginning for her and her daughter. Morning light streamed through the window, brightly illuminating the living room of the new house. The house was modest but perfect for them. There was a spacious backyard where Lily could play with their newly adopted dog, Max. On police advice, they had started keeping a large dog. Eleanor stood by the window, watching Lily run toward the school bus. Her heart was filled with warmth at her daughter's bright smile. She had worried that the terrifying night would leave trauma on Lily, but a child's resilience was remarkable. Regular counseling had also helped. Carol Daniels was arrested 2 days after the break-in in a neighboring town. Her car contained photos of Eleanor, duplicates of house keys, and, frighteningly, notes of a murder plan. During police interrogation, she admitted she had tried to eliminate Eleanor in order to marry Greg. At the trial, Carol underwent a psychiatric evaluation and was diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. She was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Greg was not prosecuted due to insufficient evidence of conspiracy, but he lost his social credibility and his job. Eleanor expedited the divorce proceedings. Greg paid child support and was allowed to see Lily once a month. However, he had moved out of state to the West Coast. Lily occasionally spoke with her father on the phone, but he had become distant from her daily life. As she prepared to return to work, Eleanor reflected on her life again. She had become stronger than before. She had overcome fear and paved a new path. Above all, she was proud that she had created a safe and loving environment for Lily. That night, after putting Lily to bed, Eleanor sat by the window in her bedroom, looking up at the starry sky. Her cell phone rang, displaying an unknown number. After a moment of tension, she answered. "Hello, this is Eleanor Harris." "Ms. Harris, this is Officer Johnson from the Massachusetts Women's Correctional Facility," a male voice could be heard. "There's something you should know. We discovered Carol Daniels attempting to write a letter to you. We confiscated it, of course, but she seems to still be fixated on you." Eleanor took a deep breath. "Does she know my new address?" "No, absolutely not. But I thought you should remain vigilant." "Thank you." Eleanor hung up. She crossed the bedroom and peeked into Lily's room. Her daughter was sleeping with a peaceful expression. Max was curled up asleep on the floor. A faithful watchdog. Eleanor gently stroked Lily's hair. "Everything's all right now," she whispered. Returning to bed, Eleanor opened the drawer at her bedside. Her father's pistol was still there. She closed the drawer and lay down on the bed. She would never let her guard down. But she would not be ruled by fear either. The courage she had shown that night to protect her daughter continued to live within her. Her last thought was of Lily's smile when she would pick her up tomorrow. Outside the window, a full moon shone brightly. Like a symbol of a new beginning.